This prince was both wise and brave, yet he harbored no ambition. Every day, he dreamed of selling off his kingdom and living a carefree, reclusive life. However, through a series of reckless maneuvers, he not only failed to ruin his nation but instead embarked on a path to global domination. Were other nations simply incompetent? Or was this prince's ability overwhelmingly formidable? The prince, named Wine, was the crown prince of the Natra kingdom. On this day, he and his aide Ninum listened to ministers discussing state affairs. The sudden death of the Earthworld Empire's emperor had plunged neighboring territories into chaos, as the imperial heirs fought viciously for power. Even the Natra kingdom felt the ripples of instability. The ministers remained unworried, believing no major issues would arise as long as Wine remained. Wine pretended to maintain composure, claiming to have prepared countermeasures. Yet the moment the ministers departed, he immediately erupted, shouting his desire to sell the kingdom and embrace reclusive freedom. Though technically still crown prince, Wine already wielded de facto royal authority as his father King Owen lay gravely ill. Why would someone with such power seek to abandon responsibility by selling his nation? The answer lay in the kingdom's extreme poverty. Situated at the continent's northernmost edge, the Natra kingdom endured short springs and long winters. Scarce resources stifled agricultural and industrial development. Even if sold, Wine estimated the kingdom wouldn't fetch decent value. Thus, he conceived a plan. First enhance the kingdom's worth, then find an opportunity to sell it at high price and escape. At that moment, Wine's sister Felanya knocked on the door, startling him into immediately straightening his posture. Felanya's visit involved nothing urgent. Their ailing father, the king, wanted to take a stroll abroad. Wine instantly rejected the idea, as the neighboring Marden kingdom currently eyed Natra with covetous ambition. Though once equally impoverished as Natra, Marden kingdom had grown arrogant after discovering gold mines. Despite sharing borders, the two nations maintained almost no official relations, yet Marden now insisted on provoking war. Aware of his kingdom's poverty and inferior equipment compared to Marden's growing prosperity, Wine planned to stage a token battle before suing for peace. Before the war began, Wine rallied his troops with impassioned speeches that left the soldiers bursting with morale. Meanwhile, General Urgio of Marden Kingdom dismissed Natra's forces completely, neglecting proper battlefield strategies. Wine originally believed Natra's 6,000 troops stood no chance against Marden's 7,000. However, to his astonishment, Natra's army fought like possessed warriors from the battle's outset, driving back the enemy relentlessly. This unexpected strength stemmed from Ambassador Blundell of the Earthworld Empire, who had previously agreed to Wine's audacious request, providing Natra's military with training methods and funding assistance. Though enhanced by these resources, Natra's inexperienced soldiers initially faltered against the enemy's bloodthirsty ferocity, allowing Marden to regain battlefield dominance. Seizing the momentum, Urgio recklessly charged toward Wine's headquarters with a vanguard unit. But this reckless charge would soon exact its price. Wine led his troops to lure enemy General Urgio into a narrow canyon. At Wine's command, ambushed soldiers stationed atop the canyon opened fire on the enemy forces. Urgio proved utterly incompetent, squandering every opportunity for victory. Ultimately, Marden Kingdom's commanders fell into the trap and were annihilated by Wayne's strategy in the canyon. Despite achieving overwhelming victory that day, Wayne remained displeased. His ministers urged him to press the advantage, but Wayne had no intention of escalating the conflict.
But it's not like I can actually say that, so...
To dissuade them, he deliberately selected Marden Kingdom's gold mine, the enemy's economic lifeline, as the next target, believing it impossible to capture. Yet against all odds, they seized it.
What do you know? We really took the mine.
We most certainly did.
Though Wine appeared slightly exasperated by this outcome, he saw no reason to reject free wealth. As he pondered how to rationally spend the fortune, miners delivered dire news. The gold mine was nearly depleted. Realizing they had wasted military resources occupying worthless territory, Wine felt the effort utterly unjustified. Fortunately, he surmised Marden Kingdom remained unaware of this fact. Certain their king would attempt to reclaim the mine, Wine decided to provoke another battle. By intentionally creating a stalemate on the battlefield, he aimed to trick Marden into repurchasing the mine, allowing him to extort massive profits from the enemy. As Wine anticipated, the enraged Marden Kingdom dispatched 30,000 troops, while Natra Kingdom only possessed 5,000 soldiers. Marden's new commander Drogwood repeated Urgio's fatal flaw. believing numerical superiority guaranteed victory. With this mindset, his first battle ended in predictable defeat. The mountainous terrain proved decisive. Narrow paths to the gold mine rendered Marden's massive forces ineffective, allowing Natra's 5,000 soldiers to dominate them completely. After 3 days without progress, Drogwood erupted in fury. When scouts reported a tunnel leading to Mountaintop, Drogwood ordered Angril to lead troops through it and ambush Wine's rear base. Little did they know this weakness was Wine's intentional trap. Their entire squad got annihilated.
Why don't they have armor or weapons? Oh no, it's a trap!
Drogwood's rage peaked upon learning the ambush's failure. The next day, Marden's intensified assault finally captured the foothill stronghold. Yet before defenses could stabilize, Natra's forces reclaimed it through nighttime surprise attacks. Observing Wine's 5,000 troops daring to confront his army, Drogwood's panicked mind speculated. Perhaps attacking headquarters was mere diversion, while assassinating him was the true goal. He immediately concentrated guards around himself. Dawn revealed through binoculars the massive assault noises were merely rocks and logs tumbling downhill, while Natra effortlessly retook the strategic stronghold. Drogwood's fury reached its boiling point. At this moment, Wine, who had thoroughly manipulated his enemies, was in excellent spirits. Suddenly, his subordinate reported the arrival of Logan, an envoy from Marden Kingdom. However, Logan's ostensible peace negotiation masked a demand for surrender. He presented 3 conditions. First, to discard weapons and retreat. Second, to return the gold mine and its residents. And third, to force Wine to pay reparations. Faced with such audacity from a defeated foe, Wine naturally refused. Yet he hadn't anticipated Logan's boldness as an envoy. Aware of Ninum's origins as a slave, Logan immediately hurled insults, precisely trampling on Wayne's red line. Since Logan had come, Wine declared he wouldn't let him leave. Meanwhile, Drogwood grew suspicious when Logan failed to return. Surmising the envoy had been dealt with, he promptly ordered a full-scale assault. But as Drogwood awaited news of victory, a messenger arrived with urgent reports from the front lines.
He says he'll see you in hell!
Wine had disguised himself as a soldier and infiltrated the enemy camp. With all opposing forces charging up the mountain, none anticipated his presence at their headquarters. Completely outmaneuvered, Drogwood still attempted to resist, but proved no match for Wayne in combat. Wayne declared that Ninum was his heart, vowing to eradicate anyone who insulted her. The Natra Kingdom achieved overwhelming victory, with all ministers lauding Wine's bravery and achievements. Ninum then summoned Wayne outside, reporting spies' news. During Marden Kingdom's full-scale assault on Natra, the neighboring Cavern Kingdom had invaded Marden. Depleted of troops, Marden had now collapsed, rendering Wine's gold mine resale plan obsolete. A silver lining emerged as miners discovered a new ore vein near the depleted mine, salvaging some value from the effort. Shortly afterward, Wine received startling news. The imperial princess of the Earthworld Empire would visit Natra Kingdom. Puzzled, Wine only realized her identity during their official meeting. She was an acquaintance. The princess declared her intent to marry Wine, who immediately recognized this political marriage as undeniably a trap. Fully aware of Princess Lowelmina's nature, her scheming came as naturally to breathing. Wine trusted none of her words, certain she harbored ulterior motives. At the evening banquet, Lowelmina publicly announced her determination to wed Wine despite her 3 brothers' disapproval. Wine inwardly mocked her unrehearsed lies, swiftly diverting the conversation by remarking on Natra's frigid climate and promising to send her warm garments after dinner. After returning to her quarters, Lowelmina soon received the garments sent by Wine. However, upon opening the chest, she found Wine and Ninum inside. Publicly, their relationship was defined by state politics, but privately, they were old friends reuniting. The 3 sat down to reminisce. Lowelmina then revealed her true motive. Her visit stemmed from her 3 brothers' ruthless power struggle, which had plunged the Earthworld Empire into turmoil. She sought Wine's assistance to exploit the chaos and claim the imperial throne. Yet Wine, now burdened with his kingdom's responsibilities, refused to meddle in foreign politics. Moreover, knowing Lowelmina's nature, he suspected her words were still lies, though her true objective remained unclear. At that moment, Nanaki, Felanya's guard, arrived to summon Ninum. Though perplexed, Ninum obeyed. Felanya, having learned of Lowelmina's marriage proposal to Wayne, was deeply displeased. She adamantly recognized only Ninum and Wine as the official couple, viewing any disruption to their bond as unacceptable. Ninum, however, remained unbothered. Firstly, as someone born into slavery, she dared not entertain marriage to Wine even if he desired it. Secondly, Wine's declaration of her as his heart solidified her irreplaceable position. No rival could threaten that. In any case, she urged Felanya to set her mind at ease. That evening, Lowelmina bathed with Ninum while chatting. During their school days, Lowelmina's admirers could circle the globe 3 times, and even after graduation, her charm remained undiminished. Among them, a man named Geralt A. Ant Gadul had pursued her obsessively, earning him the title of epitome of a devoted admirer. Ninum found the name vaguely familiar but couldn't recall his appearance. Meanwhile, Wine taught Felanya history, covering the Earthworld Empire. When discussing the Ant Gadul region adjacent to Natra Kingdom, he explained its participation in the Earthworld Empire's punitive alliance. However, Ant Gadul abruptly betrayed the coalition, pledging allegiance to the Empire instead, indirectly causing the alliance's collapse. While other royal families faced punishment, Ant Gadul's king was granted a marquee title and territorial autonomy. As Wine spoke, a guard reported discovering weapons within Natra Kingdom's borders that were not domestically produced. Instantly, Wine grasped Lowelmina's scheme. Back in their military academy days, she had once asked him, "In a male-dominated world, how can women change their circumstances?" Wine had replied that altering deeply ingrained societal norms required war, but he would only aid her if she dragged him into her plans. Thus, Lowelmina's current maneuvering wasn't unjustified. Wayne had dug this pit himself. The next day, Wine invited Lowelmina for tea. As fellow strategists, they spoke bluntly without pretense. Vassal states under the Earthworld Empire's jurisdiction planned to rebel during the prince's power struggle, distributing identical weapons to all 3 brothers to prolong their conflict. Though Lowelmina had uncovered this and warned her siblings, her arrogant brothers dismissed her entirely. Left with no choice, she journeyed alone to Natra Kingdom as bait, knowing rebels would execute the princes after victory, while whoever secured the throne-inheriting princess could claim imperial legitimacy. By positioning herself in Natra, Lowelmina aimed to provoke any attackers into exposing their rebellion. Yet Wine refused to play along, having already sent a letter to Ant Gadul stating she would visit there next. He insisted Ant Gadul wouldn't mobilize troops, but Lowelmina disagreed. As they argued, Ninum pushed open the door and entered. Though Ant Gadul's forces never arrived, Marquis Geralt, upon hearing Lowelmina's whereabouts, stormed the palace uninvited to retrieve her. Forced by hospitality protocols, Wine reluctantly hosted Geralt, privately fuming at the intrusion. Both Wine's and Lowelmina's schemes now lay in ruins. Wine speculated Lowelmina would pivot, exploiting Geralt's infatuation to fabricate evidence of his father's rebellion. With insufficient troops, she'd inevitably drag Natra into the conflict, eliminate her brothers post-rebellion, and seize the throne with Wine's support. Unsurprisingly, this matched Lowelmina's exact plan, yet as Wine anticipated her moves, she likewise predicted his counterplays. Their rivalry crystallized. Each now unequivocally viewed the other as a calculated adversary. At the evening banquet, Wine and Lowelmina performed a coordinated act, showering Geralt with extravagant praise from all sides until he grew intoxicated with flattery. However, upon learning of Wine's prior acquaintance with Lowelmina, jealousy flared within Geralt. When he further discovered Wine's swordsmanship skills, he abruptly challenged him to a duel. This placed Wine in a dilemma. As crown prince, he couldn't afford public humiliation before his officials, yet defeating Geralt would sabotage their plans. He resolved to engineer a draw.
This is awful!
Why in the world would you go and do a thing like that?
To his shock, Geralt drunk lunged wildly with his sword, crashed through a window, and plunged to his death from the tower. Ninum's inspection confirmed Geralt's unmistakable demise. Wine and Lowelmina's schemes now lay in ruins, risking catastrophic escalation. When Marquis Ant Gadul learned of his son's death, though armed with justification to invade Natra Kingdom, his paranoia suspected Lowelmina's orchestrated assassination to expose their rebellion, leaving him hesitant. Wine faced deeper frustration. How could a master strategist be undone by a fool? Circumstances now forcibly entangled him in the crisis. Meanwhile, Lowelmina, rejecting Aide Blundel's pleas to flee, declared, "The throne matters not. but as imperial royalty, quelling rebellion is my duty. She united with Wine, forming an alliance to strategize against the rebel states. How audacious was this prince! The enemy's son died before his eyes. Before the grieving father could seek revenge, the prince took the initiative to confront him. Surrounded by a line of guards pointing swords at him, Wine remained utterly calm. He declared he wanted to discuss matters of mutual interest with the marquee. The moment they sat down, Wine directly accused the marquee of rebellion, stating that the Earthworld Empire's princess already knew everything. This terrified the marquee, who immediately demanded if Wine had come to arrest him. Wine merely smiled, then pinned all blame for the rebellion on the deceased Geralt. He offered the marquee a deal: admit to being coerced by his son and surrender evidence implicating all rebels, and the Earthworld Empire would spare them. Though the Antgadol family's status and power in the Empire would diminish, their lineage would survive. Under Wine's threats and promises, the marquee reluctantly agreed. However, this was merely a delaying tactic. Though a disloyal vassal, the marquee refused to betray his son. He would not sacrifice his child to save himself. Thus, he secretly assembled forces to eliminate Wine. Meanwhile, Western spies who had previously incited the marquee's rebellion learned of his meeting with Wine. Suspecting betrayal, they resolved to assassinate both the marquee and Wine. Elsewhere, as Wine traveled, he was abruptly ambushed. During the fight with the Western spy, Wayne instantly recognized his identity and exposed the spy's next move, not only attempting to kill Wayne, but also planning to murder the marquee and destroy evidence. Though alarmed, the spy remained composed. Even if Wayne had deduced their plan, his assassins were already en route to eliminate the marquee. Too late to stop them, yet Wine's cunning prevailed. He had anticipated this outcome, having secretly dispatched Nanaki to infiltrate the marquee's estate. As expected, all assassins sent by the spy fell to Nanaki. Now with his scheme thoroughly crushed and having lost an arm to Wine's blade, the defeated spy could only flee in disgrace. However, immediately after dealing with the assassins, Wine discovered the marquee had breached their agreement and attempted to kill him, forcing Wine to activate Plan B and flee. With Wine leading his men in a frantic escape and the marquee pursuing with troops, the scenario felt eerily familiar. The marquee had fallen into Wine's trap once again. Having anticipated the marquee's treachery, Wine had stationed forces at the border and instructed Lowellmina to mobilize Earthworld Empire troops for a rear encirclement, leaving the marquee trapped like a turtle in a jar. Brought before Lowellmina with irrefutable evidence, the marquee desperately tried to shift blame by accusing Wayne of crossing the border with troops to invade the Earthworld Empire. Yet Wine, ever meticulous, had prepared a legitimate pretext. The Natra Kingdom and Earthworld Empire were conducting joint military exercises.
There's no way. Whatever I do, I can't see a way to win.
Realizing he was outmatched, the marquee admitted total defeat. To protect his family, he voluntarily confessed everything to Lowellmina. After obtaining proof of the vassal state's rebellion, Lowellmina decided to depart. Before leaving, Ninam bluntly pointed out Lowellmina's unspoken feelings for Wine. When Lowellmina asked why he chose such a convoluted method despite simpler alternatives, Wine explained it was to ensure her firm control over the Antgadol family, honoring their original pact. If she could draw him into the scheme, he would support her fully. Thus, Lowellmina departed the Natra Kingdom. Shortly afterward, Wine was invited by the King of the Cavern Kingdom to attend the Festival of the Spirit. Though the kingdom adhered to the Levithian religion, advocating holiness and salvation, it deeply discriminated against the Fram people. Thus, Ninam, who accompanied him, had to dye her white hair black and repeatedly urged Wine not to act recklessly, no matter what happened. As the two bantered playfully, their convoy arrived near a gold mine. Resting at an inn that night, the leader of the gold mine workers reported the discovery of a new mineral vein to Wine. While pleased by the prospect of wealth, Wine grew wary of potential sabotage, especially since the nobles of the Natra Kingdom had grown restless after the retirement of his trusted general, Hagal. He cautioned everyone to proceed steadily and cautiously, avoiding vulnerabilities that hostile forces could exploit. Meanwhile, a purple-haired woman in a cloak, who called herself Ibis, informed nobles plotting rebellion about Wine's absence from the Natra Kingdom, a clear sign of her dubious intentions. The next day, Wine was ambushed mid-journey. He speculated that the attackers, disguised as pursuers, were either from the Cavern Kingdom's military or remnants of the Marden Kingdom's forces. Noting their proximity to the Marden remnants' territory, he took a gamble. When the pursuers were repelled by the Marden Kingdom's remnant forces, it confirmed they were separate factions. Wayne then revealed his identity and requested a meeting with Prince Helmut of the Marden Kingdom. Arriving at the remnant stronghold, he negotiated not with the prince but with his trusted aide, Zenobia. Upon learning Wayne was en route to the Cavern Kingdom's Festival of the Spirit, Zenobia mistakenly assumed an alliance between the two kingdoms and drew her sword to kill him. Unfazed, Wayne calmly analyzed the situation. The Cavern Kingdom was focused on exterminating the Marden remnants, whose forces were insufficient to resist them. He pointed out that the earlier attackers were likely Cavern Kingdom troops, suggesting that the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and proposing an alliance to jointly attend the festival. With the Cavern Kingdom's capital now gathering rulers from various nations to select a Levithian religious administrator, Wine argued that winning the favor of one could aid the Marden remnants' restoration. Convinced, Zenobia agreed, and both parties traveled together to the Cavern Kingdom's capital. That night, Wayne formulated plans. He and Lockram would meet the king the next day while Ninum gathered intelligence. Zenobia also intended to collect information. The following day, Wine's group arrived at the palace of the Cavern Kingdom. On the way, they encountered General Levert of the Cavern Kingdom. Though the general spoke provocatively, Wine remained unfazed. His attention focused on a wounded soldier beside Levert, likely one of his earlier pursuers. When Wine met the Cavern King, the monarch greeted him with exaggerated warmth, as if reuniting with an old friend, and insisted on introducing him to others. Abruptly, the king escorted Wine to the Levithian religion's selection ceremony and nominated him as the new religious administrator. That evening, Wine agonized over the decision. Though Ninum noted the stringent requirements for joining the Levithian religion, Wine revealed he met one critical criterion. The Natra Kingdom's royal family possessed the disciple lineage mandated by the church. With current religious administrators all being Western rulers, Wine reasoned that joining their ranks to forge alliances would benefit his nation. The next day, Wine took Zenobia to visit Caldmelia, one of the religious administrators. In a male-dominated nation, Caldmelia's rise to head of the Gospel Bureau without noble lineage marked her as formidable. As expected, she agreed to Wine's appointment, but demanded a condition. He must aid the Cavern Kingdom in eradicating the Marden Kingdom remnants. Zenobia, sweating coldly beside him, realized their hoped-for ally sought their annihilation instead. After Wine and Zenobia departed, a man emerged behind Caldmelia, Owl, the spy Wine had encountered earlier, now revealed as her subordinate. Meanwhile, Ninum investigated the assassination attempt. During a joint investigation with Zenobia, she had uncovered that Felanya, a former minister of the Marden Kingdom, collaborated with the enemy and betrayed the kingdom, directly leading to its downfall. Now, Felanya had allied with General Levert of the enemy nation. Through lip-reading, Ninum uncovered a startling conspiracy. They planned to attack the Natra Kingdom while Wine was away on his diplomatic mission. Back in the Natra Kingdom, rebellious nobles had already begun mobilizing. The country's hierarchical system rivals the caste system of India, where noble bloodlines enjoy privileges while low-born individuals are hunted as toys. The king of this nation, Ordalas, obsessed with bloodline purity, to the point of rendering governance unsustainable, set his sights on the neighboring Marden Kingdom's gold mine. He had intended to exploit the Marden Kingdom's war with a neighboring nation to seize the mine, but the Marden Kingdom's defeat resulted in the mine falling into the Natra Kingdom's hands. His nomination of Wayne as a religious administrator was to win him over, and if that failed, to eliminate him. By destabilizing Wayne's nation, they could invade and seize the gold mine. As Wayne speculated on the enemy's motives, Zenobia entered the room, requesting to accompany him to his meeting with King Ordalas the next day. Wayne initially refused, fearing Zenobia might attempt to assassinate Ordalas and implicate him, but relented after her repeated assurances. The next day, during their meeting with Ordalas, the king mentioned he had considered a marriage alliance but lacked a daughter, not because he had never fathered one, but due to his pathological fixation on bloodlines. Upon discovering his heir lacked the intellect he demanded, he had executed both the daughter and her mother. Hearing this, Wine deemed him a fool and lost most interest in an alliance. Yet he was stunned when Ordalas demanded he hand over Ninum to be hunted as prey, prompting Wayne to recall that the last person who made such a request was likely long buried.
Good riddance, Ordalas!
Seeing this, Wine's guard Lokram promptly handed his prince a sword. Though Wine wore a smile, his blade showed no mercy as he struck. He then passed the sword to Zenobia, who seized the chance to exact revenge.
You filthy traitor!
After eliminating the king of the Kavaran kingdom, Wine swiftly fled with his group. Before departing, he ordered his men to retrieve evidence of Lever's rebellion from Helonia's residence and deliver it to Caldmelia. Though not his ally, Caldmelia, capitalizing on the chaos in the Kavaran kingdom, ordered her forces to set fires across the city and spread rumors of the general assassinating the king, inciting riots. Overwhelmed, Levert could not immediately pursue Wine. Meanwhile, Wine's return route was blocked by boulders, and Ninum received news that rebel nobles had sealed the borders, leaving Wine trapped between enemies. Unfazed, Wine devised a plan. The next day, when Levert's troops pursued them and spotted luggage on the main road, Levert opted to follow that path. However, his subordinates, convinced it was a decoy, diverted to a longer route. Instead of finding Wayne, they clashed with Natra Kingdom's rebels and were ambushed from behind by Marden Kingdom remnants. Forced to fight, the Kavaran forces and rebel nobles exhausted each other, precisely Wayne's scheme. Having hidden near the collapsed shortcut, Vine waited until Levert took the detour before launching a surprise attack from behind, forcing the Kavaran troops into battle with the rebels. On the other front, General Hoggle arrived with troops to annihilate the remaining rebels and pursuers. Wine had anticipated the nobles' rebellion and secretly positioned General Hoggle as a contingency. Shortly after returning to the palace, Helmut, the second prince of the Marden Kingdom, arrived, revealed to be none other than Zenobia. Her true identity was the princess of the Marden Kingdom, surviving after all male members of the royal family were executed during the Kavaran Kingdom's capture of the capital. To navigate challenges as a woman, she disguised herself as Zenobia and operated as a trusted aide to the second prince. With the Natra Kingdom's aid, the Marden Kingdom was successfully restored. Wine had hoped this would deepen their alliance, positioning the Marden Kingdom as a western shield for Natra, but to his surprise, Zenobia, after witnessing his capabilities, grew to admire him and voluntarily pledged allegiance. Meanwhile, within the Earthworld Empire, the autonomous city of Mieltars was set to host a grand celebration alongside a summit of the Empire's 4 imperial heirs. Though the Natra Kingdom received an invitation, Wayne, preoccupied with post-war affairs and unwilling to attend, sought excuses to decline. Unexpectedly, his sister Felanya volunteered to represent him. During their journey to Miltars, Ninum briefed Felanya on the current landscape. Besides the 3 imperial princes, Lowelmina had also built her own faction, though unlike the princes, her forces publicly claimed no interest in the throne, focusing solely on serving the nation and its people. Upon arriving at the banquet, Lowelmina greeted Felanya warmly and immediately introduced her to her 3 brothers. Ninum saw through her ploy to create the illusion that the Natra Kingdom supported her in front of the other princes. As for the 3 princes of the Earthworld Empire, the third prince, Manfred, was a skilled negotiator adept at recruiting talent. The second prince, Bardlosh, controlled the military, his imposing physique reflecting his combat prowess. And the eldest prince, Demetrio, aside from his status as the firstborn, possessed neither moral integrity nor competence, even ranking below Geralt. Demetrio openly scorned Felanya, while the other 2 princes extended conversation invitations, which she politely declined. Later, Lowelmina summoned Ninum privately, proposing a deal. If Felanya publicly declared Natra's support for her, she would share the summit's details verbatim. Wine, having anticipated this, had prepared a response, to tell her to go somewhere cooler. With her scheme foiled, Lowelmina grudgingly withdrew. The next day, Felanya toured Miltars under Mayor Cosimo's guidance and noticed its unique feature. All city affairs were decided through public deliberation. Intrigued, she joined the discussions. Meanwhile, the Imperial Summit concluded with Demetrio enraged, not only by his brother's rivalry for the throne, but also by his resentment toward the Natra Kingdom, viewing their dispatch of a princess to the event as an insult. Fueled by hatred, he resolved to stir trouble. Elsewhere, Lowelmina sought Ninum for casual conversation. As the 2 bantered, a maid suddenly knocked on the door, announcing Demetrio's arrival. His sole purpose was to demand Felanya's hand in marriage, not out of affection, but to torment her. Felanya, unable to outright refuse, attempted to stall by citing Wine's absence. Unpredictably, Demetrio, irrational and volatile, threatened that if he failed to marry her, he would destroy the Natra kingdom first upon ascending the throne. At that moment, Wine appeared at the door, having overheard only fragments of the conversation until Ninum passed him a note explaining the fool's intent to wed his sister. Aware they were on foreign soil, and that the Natra kingdom, a small border nation, dared not provoke the Earthworld Empire's eldest prince, Wine feigned compliance. He then pivoted, proposing his own marriage to Lowelmina instead. The duo's act implied that if both siblings wed into the Empire, their rising influence might threaten the throne. Enraged, Demetrio nearly reached his breaking point before Wine diffused tensions, suggesting they revisit the matter tomorrow. Demetrio, not entirely foolish, accepted the offered exit. Wine's late arrival stemmed not only from concern for his sister, but also from intel that the Leviathan religion was targeting the city. At that moment, Ninum handed Wayne an invitation, stating Lowelmina had requested a private meeting. Upon arriving at the tower, Lowelmina vented her frustrations to Wine. She aspired to become emperor, but was not even seen as a candidate by most, leaving her anxious and uncertain. In Wine's view, however, the other three princes had already lost public favor, and Lowelmina would inevitably claim the throne eventually. Nonetheless, the prolonged vacancy risked destabilizing the nation. Still, Wine offered no comfort, bluntly declaring his actions would never prioritize her interests. Infuriated, Lowelmina retorted that if ignored, she would drag both him and Ninum into the fray. Meanwhile, the third prince, Manfred, aware of Wayne's capabilities, ordered his subordinates to assassinate him to eliminate future threats. The next day, during Wine's meeting with Demetrio, poison was discovered in the tea. When Wine instructed the maid to drink it, she refused, exposing herself as the poisoner. Observing this, Demetrio mocked Wine's caution and boldly drank the tea himself, succumbing to poisoning. Wine, framed as the suspect, was placed under house arrest. During this time, Demetrio fled cowardly after recovering, while the other two princes mobilized troops under the pretext of the Mealter's poisoning attempt, encircling the city. Lowelmina, Felanya, and Mayor Cosimo collaborated to seek a peaceful resolution, but Wayne, deeming the chaos too volatile, planned to retreat to his kingdom. Suddenly, reports arrived. The Leviathan religion had dispatched forces to meddle in the turmoil.
There's way too much going on for you to be showing your face right now!
Overwhelmed by the escalating crisis, compounded by exhaustion from relentless work, Wine collapsed to the ground. With Wine currently unavailable, Felanya resolved to fulfill her duties as princess. The council was in chaos, with some supporting the Earthworld Empire and others the Leviathan religion. Amid their relentless disputes, Felanya stepped forward, declaring that despite the city's military inferiority to both factions, unity and the ingenuity of its merchants would overcome the crisis. Her words spurred the chaotic council into action. When Wine awoke and learned of his sister's decisive role, he proposed a plan. Felanya would deliver a speech to rally the citizens into a crowd and escape the city together. The two princes froze in disbelief at the sight, while Caldmelia of the Leviathan religion was caught off guard. As she hesitated on how to respond, Wine suddenly approached her. This prince excelled at betrayal after gaining advantages. After leveraging the Leviathan religion's forces to safely evacuate the citizens, he schemed to expel the religion without explicit confrontation. Employing tactical retreat, he argued that since the religion had mobilized troops under the pretense of saving Milters, they could not ignore the citizens' desire to reclaim the city themselves. To avoid antagonizing the religion, Wine offered to purchase their surplus weapons and provisions at triple the market price. Caldmelia, unwilling to let her plans collapse, intended to refuse, until King Gruyere of the Soljist kingdom unexpectedly agreed, prioritizing profit over entanglement in the conflict. With Wine and Gruyere aligned, the armed citizens deterred the princes, who recognized that Miltar's value lay in its merchant populace. Warfare would only harm their interests. With battle off the table, negotiations began. Wine claimed to have identified Demetrio as the poisoner, framing the incident as a self-staged ploy to provoke conflict between Miltars and the princes, weakening both sides for his own gain. Though the third prince knew the true culprit, all parties silently accepted Demetrio as the scapegoat, aware that refusing to withdraw would lead to mutual losses and Demetrio's eventual triumph. Thus, the three factions unanimously pinned the blame on Demetrio. Following these events, the city of Miltars aligned itself with Lowelmina's faction and collaborated with the Natra kingdom to support Wine's export trade. However, due to Western nations' biases against Eastern goods, Wine initiated a rebranding scheme, modifying packaging to disguise Earthworld Empire products as Natra Kingdom goods, then exporting them to Western nations through the Marden Kingdom. This strategy risked strengthening the Marden Kingdom, potentially fueling desires for independence. When King Gruyere invited Wine to the Soljist Kingdom's celebration, Wine decided to visit the Marden Kingdom en route to gauge their intentions. Meanwhile, Zenovia's faction anticipated this move. Though not seeking independence, they aimed to leverage the situation to enhance their kingdom's influence. A minister suggested Zenobia marry Wayne to dispel doubts. On Wine's side, while discussing the matter with Ninum, he reasoned that a marriage proposal would confirm the Marden Kingdom's loyalty, though he had no intention to wed Zenobia, believing unmarried royals held greater diplomatic advantages. Ninum chastised him for even considering it. Upon meeting Zenobia in the Marden Kingdom, they discussed the import business, which had generated substantial profits. However, the Kingdom of Delunio, controlled by its devout chancellor Soljist, who rejected all foreign cultures, discovered the rebranding scheme and sent a protest. Wine remained unperturbed, confident, as long as Delunio refrained from extreme actions. The next day, Zenobia dressed in male attire and strolled through the market with Wine. As evening approached, she suddenly asked why he always distrusted the populace. Wine explained that royal ancestors were once commoners who later claimed noble lineage through achievements and status, meaning even ordinary people could someday rise to nobility. His vigilance aimed to prevent the royal family's overthrow. Zenobia was stunned by the grand scale of his perspective, further convincing her she lacked the capability to secure the role of his principal spouse. As the marriage discussion concluded, Chancellor Soljist, previously mentioned, confronted them, demanding the Natra Kingdom halt its product sales. Wine immediately refused, insisting the goods were local specialties. Soljist, armed with evidence proving the popular yellow garments in his country originated from the Earthworld Empire, pressed the accusation, but Wine denied everything. Furious, Soljist vowed to make Wine regret his defiance before departing. The following day, Wine bid farewell to Zenobia and soon arrived at the Soljist Kingdom's capital. Noting its thriving maritime trade routes, he considered establishing business ties. Moreover, given the international landscape, he speculated the Earthworld Empire might seek an alliance with the Natra Kingdom to jointly counter their rival, the Kingdom of Delunio. The scene shifted as Wine arrived at the royal palace, where Gruyere warmly welcomed him and immediately ordered a feast. Though it was said that deals are easily struck over drinks, Wine's attempt to broach serious matters was interrupted by Princess Tolchela, who eagerly urged him to eat. Reluctantly complying, Wayne found the food so delicious that he became utterly engrossed, neglecting his agenda entirely and even suffering stomach discomfort afterward. In the following days, Wine still sought to advance negotiations, but Gruyere deliberately avoided the topic each time, leading Wine to suspect hidden motives. Perhaps Gruyere had lured him not for diplomatic goodwill, but to assassinate him and target the Natra Kingdom. Wine resolved to return home immediately, only for Gruyere to summon him the next moment. Meeting Wine and Ninum, Gruyere adopted a casual demeanor, even inviting Ninum to sit, a gesture that puzzled Wine, as the church despised the Fram people. Gruyere clarified that while he revered divinity, he did not blindly obey divine decrees, hence his willingness to treat the Fram people equally. Impressed, Wine seized the moment to propose an alliance. After a brief silence, Gruyere readily agreed, though the pact remained verbal, lacking written documentation, which sowed seeds for future conflict. Upon returning to the Natra Kingdom, Wine received news of Delunio's attack on Marden Kingdom's border and Soljist Kingdom's subsequent assault on Natra under their alliance treaty. Realizing Gruyere had deceived him, Wine acknowledged their current weakness against both nations, leaving no option but to seek alternative strategies. At that moment, Zenobia arrived and stated that the current crisis stemmed from her falling into a trap. Previously, when the Marden Kingdom purchased land, they had altered the contract to an indefinite lease out of consideration for the Delunio Kingdom's reputation. Now, when demanded to return the land, she refused, only for Delunio to use this as a pretext to attack both the Marden Kingdom and the Natra Kingdom. Despite the situation, Zenobia proposed negotiating peace with Delunio, believing that even if the Marden Kingdom suffered heavy losses, it could at least protect the Natra Kingdom. Wayne approved of her answer, valuing her proactive approach regardless of its effectiveness. After deciding, Wayne and Zenobia traveled to the Delunio Kingdom. Soljist, upon meeting them, arrogantly rejected their plea for peace, even when Zenobia offered Marden's land in exchange. Confident in victory, he intended to dedicate the conquered territories to the church post-war. Unbeknownst to him, Wine had a sinister countermeasure. If Soljist continued the war, the Natra and Marden kingdoms would surrender, unleashing 800,000 refugees into Delunio. Soljist balked, threatening military force to repel them. Wine revealed that the yellow garments sold to Delunio were laced with lethal poison, causing gradual death. Unaware, citizens would flee, mistaking the poison for an epidemic. Delunio's military could not sustain prolonged resistance, and the influx of refugees would cripple cities, inviting neighboring nations to invade. The result would be the collapse of not only Natra and Marden but Delunio itself. Though Wine's claims were fabricated, Soljist largely believed them. Just then, urgent frontline reports arrived. The Soljist kingdom had driven the Natra kingdom into retreat. Soljist snapped, grabbing Wine by the collar and condemning his manipulation of civilians. Unfazed, Wine proposed a deal. If Soljist sent troops to ambush the Soljist kingdom's rear, he would provide the antidote. Forced to compromise, Soljist agreed. Meanwhile, the Natra kingdom's forces desperately held their position. As their camp neared collapse, reinforcements from the Delunio kingdom arrived. Gruyere, consumed by battle frenzy, refused to retreat and charged forward, only to be swiftly slain by Ninum. After the victory, Gruyere remained a captive in the Natra kingdom, his injuries leaving him gaunt. Wine chose not to execute him, both to avoid provoking the Levithian religion and to preserve potential alliances with the Soljist kingdom. Offering Gruyere a document, Wine promised his repatriation upon signing. Gruyere, clinging to royal pride, countered. He would sign only if Wayne revealed his true ambitions.
Is that the truth?
As for what Wine said, we have no way of knowing, but viewers can trust the production team to reveal the answer in the second season. The Genius Prince's Guide to Raising a Nation Out of Debt concludes here. As a low-budget anime, its content remains impeccable, and the intricate scheming and intrigue between characters were thoroughly engrossing. Viewers who enjoy political intrigue should not miss it.